Why, hello there. My name is Reginald Punnett. I was born in 1875 in Tonbridge in England. I got appendicitis when I was a young child, and as I was recovering, I discovered the Naturalists' Library. I developed an interest in natural history, and I was educated at Clifton College. In 1901, I was back at Cambridge when I was elected to a fellowship. I was working in zoology, actually, with worms. It was during this time that I met William Bateson. We began a research collaboration with Mendel's genetics study. Our collaboration lasted several years. It was with Bateson that I helped establish a new science of genetics at Cambridge. Now I have a lovely assistant who is going to explain to you my Punnett squares, which are named after me, Reginald Punnett.
We are going to review a couple of terms before we learn about Punnett squares, which we just learned were created by Reginald Punnett. The first term we're going to review is allele. We need to know about alleles. These are a form of a gene. We need to know the two different types of alleles, which we also learned about already, and those are dominant and recessive. Dominant alleles are the traits that show up. So if you have a parent with brown eyes and a parent with blue eyes, and their baby has brown eyes, that is the dominant gene, the gene that is expressed. The next type of allele is recessive. This creates a phenotype, which is the physical characteristic, remember, if there is no dominant allele present. If the dominant allele is present, the recessive just kind of hides back there and waits to show up in future generations. The next word we need to know for Punnett squares is phenotype. This is a physical and observable characteristic. This is what we see when we see brown eyes. We know that we can see exactly what is happening, what that phenotype is, because we can observe it. The next thing that we need to know for Punnett squares is the genotype. This is simply the genetic characteristic. This is something like if a baby carries a gene for blue eyes but has brown eyes, we don't see that gene. We don't see the recessive gene that they carry. We see the phenotype, the physical characteristic. So here's how we draw a Punnett square. You just make a box and put two lines through it. Once you've made your box, you're going to put whatever you are showing. In this case, we're going to show two wolves. One wolf has heterozygous brown eyes, and the other wolf has homozygous blue eyes, which means that both of those B's are little, and they are the same. For heterozygous, the B's are different. One is uppercase, so it has a dominant brown eye and a recessive blue eye. It carries that recessive gene. So once we have all of those in those squares, we carried them down and carried them over. We're going to look at the ratios. We have 2 big B little b and 2 little b. So our ratio is 2 to 2. There's a 50% chance that the baby will have blue eyes and a 50% chance that the baby will have brown eyes. So in a litter of 4 puppies, 2 would potentially have brown and 2 would have blue. In our next one, we're going to say that both of the wolves have brown eyes, but one is heterozygous. It carries the gene for blue eyes. The other is homozygous and only carries the gene for brown eyes. So we carry these down to our squares and we carry these over. So you see that big B shows that dominant brown eye. And then we're going to look at our ratios again here. So again, we have 2 big B's and then 2 big B little b, which means our ratio is 2 to 2 or 50%. Now our ratios are not always going to be 50%. And in this case, they carry the trait for blue eyes, but the likelihood is that they will all have brown eyes because that brown eye is dominant. Now, in this case, we have two heterozygous parents. So they both have brown eyes, but they carry the recessive trait of blue eyes. And I just put those there because the uppercase is supposed to come first, even though I was moving the top down first. So our ratio here, you see, we have 1 big B, 2 big B, and 1 little b. So the likelihood of a litter of puppies will be 1 baby with brown eyes, 2 more babies with brown eyes, but the blue recessive trait, and 1 baby with blue eyes.